It's pitch black, warm, and cramped. You've been sharing this tiny, suffocating space with 3 identical clones of yourself for months. None of you asked for this. Your mom, waddling through a patch of muddy forest, is barely holding it together. She's pregnant with quadruplets, a walking buffet for coyotes, hawks, and humans in SUVs who are too busy texting to notice her crossing the road. She could have delayed this pregnancy. Armadillos can pause gestation for years if the conditions aren't right, but apparently she thought this disaster of a world was good enough to drop you in. Thanks, Mom. Then, one day, the warm darkness is gone. Your mom picks a shallow burrow and starts the eviction process. One by one, you and your identical siblings are pushed out into the dirt. Welcome to life, little armadillo. You're blind, hairless, and your so-called armor is as protective as wet tissue paper. Your mom glances at you briefly, maybe she sighs, maybe not, and immediately begins scouting for her next meal or escape route. There's no bonding time. No, it's okay, sweetie. She's just hoping you don't attract predators before she figures out how to ditch you. The first few days are a blur of nursing and huddling together with your siblings for warmth. You don't know it yet, but everything about you screams easy snack. Snakes, hawks, coyotes, they're all watching, waiting for you to take one wrong step. Your mom doesn't stick around much. When she does, it's less about protecting you and more about making sure nothing loud or toothy is heading her way. You're essentially a walking liability. At around 2 weeks old, your eyes finally open and you get your first look at the world. It's underwhelming.
NANI?
Dirt. Dirt. Your siblings, or wobbly cleon like drunk toddlers bumping into each other. Naturally, you decide this moment is worth documenting. If armadillos had social media, you'd be posting something like, first time out of the burrow, feeling squishy but optimistic. Too bad there's no Wi-Fi, because 30 seconds later, a hawk swoops down and gives your imaginary post a big fat like. You barely make it back to the burrow in time, and the realization sinks in. The outside world is awful. Your mom decides it's time for you to learn the basics of survival. She gives you a shove, and suddenly you're standing under the open sky, the sunlight feeling like a spotlight on how unprepared you are. She watches briefly as you and your siblings take your first shaky steps, then waddles off, leaving you to figure things out. You sniff the air, overwhelmed by a mix of new smells: dirt, grass, and something that feels like danger. Every rustle in the bushes makes your heart race. You try to act brave, maybe take a few steps forward, but then a shadow moves above you. It's the hawk again. Instinctively, you freeze, hoping it'll mistake you for a rock. It doesn't. You dive headfirst into the burrow, panting, while your siblings trip over each other trying to follow. Survival instinct, 1. Dignity, 0. Weeks pass, and you start to get the hang of being an armadillo, or at least you think you do. Digging comes naturally. Your claws are like tiny shovels, perfect for tearing through dirt in search of worms and grubs. Foraging, however, is less straightforward. Your eyesight is terrible, so you rely entirely on your nose, sniffing the ground like some kind of confused vacuum cleaner. Every meal feels like a hard-earned victory. Predators, on the other hand, remain a constant problem. Your defense strategy is laughable. Freeze, run, or if you're lucky enough to be the kind of armadillo that can do it, curl into a ball. And even then, a determined coyote can crack you open like a pistachio. Your shell finally starts to harden, and for a brief moment you feel confident. Maybe you're not so vulnerable after all. Then, one morning, your mom decides she's had enough. Without warning, she nudges you out of the burrow and waddles off without a backward glance. No hugs, no good luck, just abandonment. You and your siblings stare at each other, stunned, before realizing you're on your own. It's like being kicked out of the house without so much as a guidebook or a snack. Finding your own territory is a nightmare. Every decent patch of land is already claimed by a bigger, meaner armadillo. You try to settle in one spot, only to be chased off with scratches and bites. After several humiliating defeats, you stumble across a damp, unremarkable piece of land that nobody else wants. It's small, ugly, and probably prone to flooding, but it's yours. You dig a burrow, sit back, and pretend this was the plan all along. Life settles into a routine. Dig, eat, avoid death, repeat. Coyotes sniff around your burrow at night, hawks circle during the day, and rain turns your home into a muddy swimming pool. Armadillos can hold their breath for 6 minutes, which is just enough time to question all your life choices before panicking. Mating season arrives, bringing with it a new wave of chaos. If you're a male, you roam for miles in search of a female, dodging predators and rivals along the way. The courtship is awkward and transactional, like a bad blind date where nobody really wants to be there. If you're a female, congratulations, you're now pregnant with quadruplets, because apparently nature loves efficiency. As years pass, your once hardened shell begins to crack. Your claws dull, your legs stiffen, and your reflexes slow. Predators are still out there, but now you're too tired to outrun. Cars carve through your habitat, turning every trip above ground into a high-stakes game of survival. You've learned to dodge, but your habit of jumping straight up when startled is problematic. Imagine trying to explain to another species, "No, I didn't get hit by the car. I jumped into it." One day you dig your final burrow. It's not much, but it's enough. You curl up inside, feeling the weight of a lifetime spent dodging death. Somewhere out there, one of your offspring is fumbling through the same miserable routine, making the same bad decisions. The world keeps spinning, but for you, it's lights out. Life as an armadillo isn't just tough, it's absurd. From birth to death, everything wants to kill you, and your only defense is being slightly less appealing than whatever's nearby. The best you can hope for is to not die embarrassingly. But hey, at least you tried.